Hi guys. Have you ever heard of the quote that starting over isn't doesn't mean you're starting from scratch? Um, well, I've been pondering that a little bit more and thinking about my life up until this point. I am going to be turning 34 this year and realizing, yes, I have accomplished so much, but there's still so much that I wish to continue and to grow and to share with people. Life has a funny way of working out and a funny way of reminding us when we need things. And they have gentle reminders to push us in the right direction that we need to go. I love the If Network. I love the idea of the If Network, and I love the message behind it. Um, am I still working on trying to get it started and get it going in Monroe County? Yes. Am I feel like I Do I feel like I am walking uphill and carrying loads and loads and loads of bricks? Yes. Do I feel like I am doing it alone? Not 100%. There are a select few out there that are actually showing up and showing up for themselves as well as others, and I appreciate the crap out of you. But I'm also getting met with a lot of kickback and a lot of, well, silence and crickets. And it just kind of reinforces why I am so motivated for the If Network, why it exists, why it should exist, and why it needs to be part of a community. In the last few, I'd say, few weeks, I have come to the realization that Monroe County may not be the place for it. It is almost seeming like if you are not a member of a community or not a member of some type of elite thing or some religious organization, you are kind of going to get kickback. And at this point, while I am desperate to help the families in Monroe County, sorry, it just got really sunny, which is awesome. I'm grateful for it. Um, as much as I want to help the community of Monroe County, I'm also being called to other locations. And that's where the quote, starting from, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from something more. Like when you're starting over, and I have started over multiple times. When I left Monroe the very first time, I had moved to Puerto Rico in search of not only a community, but myself. The community that I found over there was insanely welcoming, welcomed me with open arms and embraced every bit of me that got shunned from Monroe. And now I'm almost faced with a similar issue. I mean, I'm not going to go as dramatic and far as say, Puerto Rico, but when I came back, I fought to find myself in this county. I fought to find myself in motherhood. I fought to find myself amongst many different things. And I've started to notice a dramatic pattern. And if you live in a small town, you might feel this way too. uh, that other people outside of your county, outside of your community, tends to accept you more, which isn't a bad thing. Uh, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. I don't necessarily believe in a God in the way most people do. I do believe in the earth. I do believe in energy. I do believe in spirituality. Uh, and that has been a main reason for a lot of people to not support me. And as hurtful as that seems, especially from the people in that community who tend to be, more on that side where it's supposed to be preaching about loving each other and accepting everyone, uh, the amount of kickback that comes from those groups is insane. Uh, and I can see why it becomes so isolating. Um, Yesterday was a very difficult day. And it was a difficult day in many ways, and not in the sense where it was any different than any other day. Um, but as a mother of four, who is primarily a stay-at-home parent, and I run the household, help run my husband's business while he works 13, sometimes even like longer days. And doesn't come home, like leaves at 6 in the morning, doesn't come home until like 12 at night almost. It's it's difficult. You got to entertain 4 children, you get to make sure everything's taken care of around the house, all while still trying to build something great. Um, and it can feel isolating. And I caved in to my emotions. And while emotions I view as powerhouses, like your superpowers, uh, they can also weigh insanely heavy on you if you feel like you do not have a support system or you feel like you are not supported. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, I do have family members. I do have people in my community that do support me and stuff. At the same time, when you're in that moment as a mother, as a parent, you don't see the support. It feels isolating and alone. And that's exactly how I felt. I let my emotions get the best of me. And I said some things that obviously I regret, but I'm also using it as a way to improve my parenting. Yes, many people have a very prideful sense of being a parent. And with that prideful sense, it typically comes where saying, oh, well, I don't need any parenting advice. I can do it all myself. Or I don't need any help because I am perfect and my children are the one who needs to change. In those moments, I recognize that myself, because they are leading by my example, or I am leading by my example and they are following it. I wanted to make sure I gave them the skills and the tools to be able to handle their big emotions, even when I am struggling with mine. And this is going to be a part of something I want to start teaching on the network, and I want to talk about more in depth. Uh, and you know what? This is kind of one of the beautiful things about being a smaller YouTuber, podcaster, whatever, documenter, is that even though it seems like no one is watching, it's a beautiful gift because if no one is watching, then I have the freedom to say what I want. I'm not judged. I'm not being held captive by society or fear of judgment or rejection because honestly, if they were showing up, then I might be acting differently. So the gift is that I get to be myself authentically 100% with you guys. And when I think about starting over, I also think about the amount of times that I came back to Monroe. The first time I came back, right after Puerto Rico, I stayed for a few months and I tried to build a life. I was working at PetSmart as a groom, well, a bather, uh, because my certification did not transfer over from Puerto Rico from being a groomer. So I had to build that all up again. At the time, I did not have a license. I did not have any type of real support system. My parents were homeless at the time. They were living out of a trailer behind a heating and cooling place. Like when I say trailer, I'm not talking like mobile home trailer. I am talking about a literal like semi trailer. My parents had fixed it up and made it kind of like the studio thing, which is hilarious to look back at now because all the stuff that was my struggle growing up in my childhood and in my younger years is now kind of a fad. Um, Being homeless in a van. So van life. I lived in a van way before many people did. And it's a story a lot of people don't hear from me. So yeah. So my at the time when I moved back, my parents couldn't help me out because they were struggling themselves. And they've always kind of been in this cycle and this loop of struggle, not struggle, not struggle, struggle. Um, but I got an apartment. I was so proud of myself. I was attending college and I ended up in an abusive relationship. And when I say abusive, it was mentally, physically, and emotionally just destroyed me. Um, and at the time, I didn't really talk to anyone about it. Um, it wasn't until I moved to Livonia because I ended up almost losing. I lost my place because I decided to stick by the abuser. Um, I decided to stick by my abuser, and so I ended up having to move away and it felt even more isolating. Um, and so when I went up there, I got certified through PetSmart to be a groomer. So at that point, I was certified twice and still struggling. But I noticed even up in like Livonia, Farmington, Plymouth area that I was more accepted. There was more spiritual side stuff up there that was calling to me. I was able to make a friend group really fast. I felt connected and, accepted, all while still dealing with the abuse. Till one day it was too much. And they say when you will change when your uncomfortableness becomes too uncomfortable to move. And that's exactly what happened. And so from Livonia, I moved to Canton, and I was renting a room from, at the time, I did not know they were like drug dealers. Did not swear, I did not know. Uh, they were off of Craigslist. It was a ridiculous amount of insanity. Uh, but I had a weird sense of calm during all of that. I was on my own. I got to make my own choices. I got to choose where I went, do what I wanted, have the choices I needed. I remember going clubbing after a long shift just to come home at 2 in the morning to make s'mores and then go back out at 7 a.m. to go groom dogs. Uh, it was a wonderful, beautiful college time. I did not return to college after my abuse. There have been many times where I have applied, I have tried, and it just never seems to line up, and that's okay. So, after I did I was in Canton for a while. I bounced around a few different places. Uh, Situations just always never seemed to line up. And then it happened. I became a mother. I ended up living in Monroe. Well, I didn't move back to Monroe until afterwards, but I ended up being a mother. I gave birth to my first son, which before my first son, I had a miscarriage, and then I got pregnant right after with Maverick, and he is a beautiful 9-year-old boy. But I have learned a lot in those times of being a mother and about being myself. And so I'm here to let you guys know that you aren't alone. And I'm going to continuously say that throughout every video because I think it needs to be heard more than once. Um, so I had gotten pregnant and I had to have a lot of time off from work because it ended up being a difficult pregnancy. Not even difficult in many ways. I just had to be on bed rest. I was a high risk. There was a lot of issues, a lot of stress I was under. And after he was born, I had the wonderful opportunity and I ended up pregnant again. Um, and that's my beautiful daughter, Serendipity. And her name is Serendipity because she was not planned. She was a beautiful, happy accident. And she taught me a lot about, going back and finding myself. I missed working so much when I was staying at home with Maverick. Don't get me wrong, being a stay at home mother, it was insanely rewarding, and it is, but it does come with its own challenges. Uh, so, when I got pregnant the second time, my ex husband, decided that he would be the one to stay at home. Uh, and then eventually things happened, and I'm not going to dive too much into our breakup or to our divorce, but we ended up getting divorced in November of 2018. And then I ended up pregnant again in 2019, early 2019. The man who was my second youngest's father did not want anything to do with her. He taught me a lot about myself and independence in ways that I didn't fathom. At the time of me getting pregnant, I was living on my own. After my ex-husband and mine's divorce, I was living alone in Farmington. I had a beautiful support system, but I still didn't want to have to deal with that all alone. So I made the decision to move back to Carlton. And at the time, my parents, since having my children and since being more apt to go through their seasons. They were in a really good season, so they had a mobile home. So I moved back in with them for 6 months until I was able to save up enough to get my own place. At this time, I have three littles, and I am trying to not only support but also help grow and help nourish. Thank goodness for my parents, because despite having issues between us and any non cordial stuff, my parents were great. They were great grandparents, they're wonderful grandparents. Um, and I got lucky to have that and have that support system, as well as my sister, who also lives in the same mobile home park. Um, at first, I did not end up in the same mobile home park as them. I ended up in a different one, which was further closer to Monroe, while still working in Garden City and Livonia. So the drive became a little bit tedious at that point. So I ended up deciding, because COVID had happened, the grooming shops were completely closed. We couldn't even groom. I took up door dashing. This is when it first came out, and I was very successful at that time. I had a decent chunk of money, and I was able to not only save up but also got the benefits of any of the rebates from COVID, and I used that to fund starting my own business, which originally was a lifelong dream. Growing up, I had always wanted to be a fashion designer, wanted to own my own boutique. It did not end up with that, though. With my experience as a, a craft and antique manager at a store that was up in Livonia, I was able to use those skills that I had learned, and as well as I had processed and got to know my connections, and I opened my own craft and antique store. And during that time, there was a few different people I was dating on and off, and the main person I was motivated me to do it. And when I opened Flashback, it was a wonderful experience, but it wasn't without its downfalls. Uh, Before we even opened our doors, which a lot of people don't even realize this, I was met with a cease and desist from my previous employer, which honestly took me back, because at the time I thought we were still really close friends because we had continued our friendship after my employment a few years prior. And I was literally shook, because it at that time I was aware that it wasn't even about like me starting my own business, because they were encouraging me to start my own business. They were encouraging me to use my skills that I had learned and that I had built and that I had been coached by them to do something with. Uh, I guess they were they weren't getting compensated, and I saw a side of them, which it's sad to say, but I see it a lot um, around this community and around the place where I'm at. They're very motivated by money. They're It almost was like they were willing to support me wholeheartedly as long as they were getting a cut. Um, so essentially, at this time, I was a single mother of three little kids under the age of, well, 6 and under, and I was starting a business. I had literally spent all of my savings on this business, and then I'm getting hit with legal paperwork. And when I did, of course, I panicked. I did not have the resources to deal with that. I didn't even know how to deal with that. Every lawyer that I had spoke to, before they would even actually really sit down with me and see any of this paperwork, they wanted money up front. So I felt like I was drowning. So I was coerced into an agreement where I would be paying a monthly stipend of my funds that I hadn't even made yet to them, all because I refused their coaching. Yeah. And they tried being like, well, it's for the benefit of you. When the reality is that That's kind of what kick started me helping entrepreneurs because I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to be someone who's only in it in case something's for me. Like I didn't want to help people as long as I got something back. Uh, that has always felt sticky, gooey, and gross to me. From there, I kind of started helping entrepreneurs while still dealing with the stress of not only that, but during the course of opening, I also dealt with infidelity of my boyfriend at the time, multiple different ways, as well as him siphoning and stealing thousands of dollars from me. So I was emotionally heartbroken. I was just physically overwhelmed because in order to make any money, I at that point had to do DoorDash after my store was closed. So I was limiting the time I was spending with my children. And I was stuck in a position where I didn't think I would ever come out of. And there was a time that I ended up catching COVID. It was halfway during the first year of being opened, and I literally was about to close the doors. Uh, so in December, I made the decision to stay on because of my current husband. We had started dating and he didn't want me to believe in like give up in it because he believed in myself, well, believed in me, believed in my ability to believe in myself as well as help others. He saw the community I was trying to build. Uh, so we stuck around. We were able to get a larger spot in the mall, and it was almost like my heart started to be out of it because it started to become more of about the money than the people, and that's something I never wanted. Uh, and when it comes to business, everyone's always like, "Yeah, you need to be about the money." You don't. You really don't. During my process of the larger store at Flashback, I met a lot of really beautiful people. Some people are still really close to me, and if you are watching this, I'm grateful for you. Uh, but from that, I also got a wonderful opportunity to work with a nonprofit that was supposed to be designed to help entrepreneurs, that was supposed to be out there helping the small guys like me in case we went through any of these issues, like legal issues or anything like that, to prevent from being bullied into paying large amounts for things that you don't need. Um, so I worked with them for a while, and then it wasn't long before those doors got shut as well, out of nowhere. No communication on the other end saying that things were just done. One day we showed up and our key cards just stopped working. Uh, and my parents speak about this a lot about Monroe County, about how in their younger years, when they were around my age, that they were whistleblowers for a lot of the corruption that happened. Without saying or bringing that into it, I always thought, because my parents were a little hokey, I always thought my parents were just a little bit out there. But now that I'm walking a similar path that they did, I see it. But I also see the fact of the undying welcomeness that I'm getting from other people outside of Monroe County. Um, so it kind of brings me back to starting over as in starting from scratch. When I had closed Flashback, I decided to cave in and go back to pet grooming. I had always gone back to it just because it was like my safety net. It's my thing that I know I can make money with because I'm good with animals and I'm good with people. Um, it's not something I would intend to do long term. Never has been. It's something I kind of fell into, and it's always been just there to make cash. Um, while I love my clients and I love the animals I worked with, I longed for more. And I had always wanted to work in real estate. So after being on maternity leave with my youngest, I decided to finally go and get my realtor license. And even when I had chose a brokerage, um, I did not vibe with it as well as I thought I or hoped I would. Um, and it brought me once again back to the place of isolation and loneliness. Um, Eventually, I end up getting reached out to a fellow friend, and now I'm at a wonderful brokerage there. I feel supported and heard and seen, and it's beautiful. But as a majority of a stay at home mom, I feel the isolation. I I feel the ability to not have anyone to talk to. Um, and of course, there are groups, there are resources, and I have reached out to a lot of those. Um, there was even this Facebook group, which was all supposed to be about supporting other mothers and supporting, like, kids and not feeling like afraid or anything like that. Before I even got a chance to attend an event with them, I was blocked and removed from the group. While that was kind of a shock and once again took me back, I had this epiphany last night that it's okay to start over. And while, yes, I still live in Monroe County, I'm also recognizing the fact that it may not work here. And so, this is the message to anyone else that's watching this. I will be starting to shift and try somewhere else. And though disheartened, I am going into it with hopefulness and passion and motivation like everything I do. This is not the end. It is just a new beginning that I get to rewrite and a new chapter in my life. And I will keep everyone updated as I go along. I also am going to work harder at recording myself and just getting out there. And I hope you do the same. I hope when you watch this, you recognize that I don't got big, fancy equipment. I'm not letting anything stop me. I am just going for it. And as like many things in life, we're all just winging it. No one knows anything until you try it, until you fail. I do have Family Flashback out on Kindle, available for purchase, but I'm also not going to sit here and push it for you.